Welcome to Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I'm Len Mort.
And I am not Dory Cronin. I'm Chris Naff. Good evening, everybody.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Mr. Mort.
Unfortunately, co-host Dory Cronin was called away to Georgia on a family emergency, and I'd ask the viewing audience to keep her and her family in her prayers. And with that, it's good to see you, Chris.
Thanks for having me on.
What's been going on with you?
Oh, just busy with work, busy with being selectman. It's been a lot of fun. 2 years into my first term. And I also am involved at the Asa Waters Task Force. So we have a lot going on there. So all three of those commitments I keep pretty busy.
Asa Waters is coming along pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, we had some challenges over the last couple of years. We had some financial difficulties. We had some, I would call them management issues to work through. Luckily, we have a fantastic new director, Kristen Lavodi. We stole her from the town clerk's office, but she is a person who has great experience in the hospitality industry. She's a historian. She also has performed, I forget which instrument, in front of the Queen of England. So we have a new director who has quite extensive experience in many different fields. Those combined experiences are perfect for her in her role as director. So if you haven't been to an event at the Asa Waters Mansion, I highly recommend going to asawaters.org to check out our upcoming events. They're a lot of fun, they're engaging, and they're diverse. Some of these events are historical, some are more entertaining. We have ballroom, dance lessons happening, so there's a lot going on. It's exciting times at the mansion.
There's too many communities that had beautiful historical buildings that were lost to fire or hurricanes or weather or neglect. And it's good that we have this piece of history here in town.
And it's easy to see why other communities or how some buildings aren't preserved, because it does take quite a bit of dedication and passion. We wouldn't have, the mansion wouldn't be what it is today without the passion of our volunteers, the dedication to go out and obtain the funding to keep and restore the building. It takes a lot of effort. And to your point, sometimes things happen out of our control. Another beautiful building we had in town, our old town hall, was destroyed by a fire.
We did a program on the day the town hall burned.
And that building was gorgeous. And unfortunately, we don't have it today. So I think we have to celebrate and cherish and appreciate the old historic buildings we still do have.
Absolutely. We filmed a program over at the mansion with Armin White on the Waters firearms, which was very interesting. And we didn't get the tour around inside the building to get any background shots or anything of that nature, but it'd probably be good to go over there and do a program about the history of it.
Anytime. We'd be delighted to do it.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah.
Because one day people will be gone. They'll move out of town, and they'll want to look and remember the mansion. I've had people who have seen our programs over the years that we've been doing these, and they've moved to other states, and they'd email and say, we just watched it on YouTube, and it brought back a lot of memories. So we've got to keep that history and posterity. I was absolutely amazed when we were doing the program on the Waters Mansion and looking into the history of the break-off of Millbury from Sutton, and who the different people were, the blacksmiths, and what they had created.
Oh, yeah.
Even to a point where, the Blackstone Canal became the waterway to the ocean, okay? And it was the basic start of the Industrial Revolution around here, to a point where Eli Whitney created the cotton gin, and how many of those were shipped up and down the Blackstone River?
Absolutely.
So much history here. It's just unbelievable.
I like to joke with my friends in Sutton that they're England and we're America. and I think we're a bit more free than Sutton today. So I think it's probably powerfully accurate. But I just like to tease my Sutton friends from time to time. But breaking away from Sutton probably was important because it was a cultural thing. You had the Northern Parish, which was the town common. Now we refer to it as Old Common. And that's where the community center was. And that's where those folks, the blacksmiths in town, other leaders in town, they decided, look, we're our own culture. We need to be our own town. And I think I look back at that decision as fundamental, and my appreciation of Millbury history would be different if we were all just Sutton today. So it's sometimes in history those one or two moments really define things for centuries to come, you know.
It's amazing what was made in this area by area people that, you know, brought the success of America.
Yeah.
You know, small things, shoes
Yep.
were made in this area,
Yep.
you know, and instruments for farming and everything of that nature, you know. It was just absolutely incredible what's come out of this area.
I'm biased, but I really think, one, Massachusetts really founded the country. To your point, so much was made here. The Industrial Revolution probably set the stage for us to embrace a much faster period of growth and significantly increase the standard of living for now millions of people. And now we've become the embodiment for the rest of the world. The rest of the world now tries to copy America. That all started in New England with the Industrial Revolution to increase the standard of living. And then again, I'm very biased, but if you look at someone like the Waters family and their employee, Thomas Blanchard, who created the lathe to make sure that every gun barrel was created the same, you probably don't have the ability to win the Civil War if you don't have a family like the Waters manufacturing the parts to make it possible to beat the South. And again, I'm very biased on this, but I think it's one of those fundamental things that if not for certain people, certain outcomes don't happen. And it can be traced back to a small town like Millbury. For me, that's a great sense of pride.
One day in the near future, when we install the clock in the center of town,
Yes.
which we have the clock, it is in town.
I can't wait.
And we made sure that on that clock dial, because it's going right in the center, it says Armory Village.
Love it. Love it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that can't wait to see it.
I'm very
Hopefully one day
excited.
that we'll get through the issues that are going on with that area.
Well, as long as it doesn't turn into Millbury's version of the Big Dig, hopefully the clock will be in soon.
Hopefully. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it before I die. You know. That's one of the main things I want to see. You know.
Me too.
And with that, we have some special guests here with us today. And I'd like to introduce that Dean Moss and Scott Moss. They're not brothers, but they are related.
First cousin.
I mean, it's
And,
Millbury. Everyone's related somehow, right?
Millbury
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dean is going to talk to us about the Masons and what they've been doing and how long they've been doing it. And with that, let you take the floor, Dean.
Well, we've been doing it for an awful long time. Olive Branch Lodge was chartered by Paul Revere, which was a former Grand Master of Masons in Massachusetts, and with the assistance of Isaiah Thomas in 1797. We no longer exist in the town of Millbury. We are physically in the town of Douglas. However, our responsibilities are to Sutton, Millbury, Douglas, and Valley Tech as far as our school districts. We're the third oldest Grand Lodge in the world, only second to England and Scotland.
Wow.
And the history in the town, just to bounce off some of the things that they were just talking about, the Waters family is deeply rooted into the lodge, huge, deeply rooted, which is connected to the Waters farm in Sutton. And the Taft Mansion, across from Asia Waters Mansion, which was one of my apartments when I was a young kid, funny enough, because there's all apartments in the back. And that's actually the Tory mansion, because President Taft married a Tory, and it got changed. He used to come to our lodge. He was a Mason, and we have actually his Masonic apron in our lodge preserved. Yeah, a lot of our antiquities have gone to a museum in Lexington called the Scottish Rite Museum, because during our merger, which was 2 years ago, we're having some of the stuff restored. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. We have the second Isaiah Thomas Bible that was in our possession. The first one, like a lot of other buildings, burned that we were just talking about. The wood building that was on the structure where our former lodge was burned, and we lost the Bible. So a bunch of years later, the granddaughters of Isaiah Thomas heard about it, and they presented us a Bible.
Wow.
So, I mean, lightning strikes twice there, huh? Because how you get the first one, how do you ever get the second one?
Right.
But our lodge has existed, Olive Branch Lodge has existed in many, many different places. The lodge, 1797, is actually older than the town of Millbury, so it was started in Sutton, not started in Sutton, in Oxford, and then a couple different locations in Wilkinsonville, and then in Millbury. I think we're up to about 10 or so different locations. But I mean, we're talking about a long time period.
Right.
And the lodge location a lot of times is due to where the people are, you know, where the business people are. Because, you know, when I came into the lodge and I could see everybody, we can't go into what goes on in the lodge, and I could see everybody that was in the lodge, and it was everybody that I had admired in town. Everybody that was a business person, everybody who was a school teacher, everybody who was a politician is or was and is in that lodge. And it's fantastic to be a great part of it. But the Masons, we're called the Freemasons now. There's a lot to them. It's not just the Freemasons. The Freemasons are the Shriners. Everybody's heard of the Shriners,
Sure.
the burn centers, and the centers for the children who have walking dysfunctions. We also have the Eastern Star, which is a woman's appendant body of it. We have Rainbow, which is for the young ladies, which is 8 to 21. And then we have De Molay, named after Jacques de Molay, for the young men. And those, you know, we were talking before camera started about the interest in the lodge, and we didn't finish that conversation. But these activities and these roles that these young people play, and they learn, you know, they learn leadership, they learn team building, they learn interacting at a young age. And it really is super important because they grow up to be really, you know, important and people who contribute to the town and to their societies and to their families. It's fantastic. I've been involved for, I'm not an old timer yet, but I think 27 years, and I wish I got started when I was younger.
Sure.
But that's a whole nother story. But we do a lot of things. We have a program called My Chip, which is one of the reasons here we'll talk about a little bit later. We have a program called HELP. It's Hospital Equipment Loan Program. And some of these programs that I'm going to talk about are for our Masonic family. Now, we interact with the community all the time, but we always take care of our Masonic family. So anybody in the Masonic family, let's just say you were my uncle, Lenny, and you needed an electric bed. You needed something. All you do is make the call, and you get it for as long as you need it. We have a big center down in Attleboro where they store and you know, release equipment, and it's all donated. And there's many centers around who do that. The My Chip, I'll talk about that later. That's a fantastic program, started by the Masons. My cousin Scott has a bunch of data on that he's going to share with us on that program. We have a Brotherhood program, which is all funds are donated to it. So if you were in our Masonic family and your house burned down, we help you, because that's our obligation. We're supposed to help you. But this fund has been created because sometimes it takes more than sweat or elbow grease to help. Sometimes it takes money. So when there's a tragedy, people can draw off of that. And one of the other things that we're a huge contributor to in Utica, New York, there's a heart research center called the Cardiac Research Center, and we're a big donator to that. And they are one of the people who have started using DNA to replicate a heart.
Wow.
It's fantastic. You know, you can go up there and take a tour if you like. Anybody who wants to go up there, you call them and they'll run you through the whole thing. They'll take a human heart, like a cadaver heart, and they'll strip it down to its basic frame, and then they'll take DNA skin cells and they can replicate it so it's more suited to your use.
That's incredible.
So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. The lodges in this area are 7, and we cover like every town in whole Blackstone Valley. There's a lodge, and you know, if you want to go down to Uxbridge, you want to go to Douglas, where we are now, formerly Millbury. There's a lodge everywhere. And
these lodges, Dean, who is eligible to become a Freemason?
You have to be a man freeborn. That's part of our ritual. But basically, to break it down is, we don't want people coming into the lodge that are going to use it for like mercenary motives to make contacts or something like that. You want to go in because we're supposed to all be givers. We're supposed to make the person next to us a better person by association. We call it, you know, polishing the ashlar. The rough ashlar is a stone as taken from the quarry, and then we refine it. And that's what we talk about doing to ourselves. But you apply. Years ago, you would have to ask. So a lot of children didn't get into the fraternity because they didn't know they had to ask their dad. It's kind of crazy how that happened. But we have one day a year, we have an open lodge where we invite people into it. And they can come in and they can inquire about the fraternity. And we can tell them, you know, not everything, but we can tell them quite a bit, especially more these days. And they would make application. You have to believe in deity. No atheist can be a Mason. And that doesn't fit well with some people these days, but I believe in that an awful lot. So you make application, and then there's a whole process. We just brought a young kid in last night, 3rd generation from Millbury.
Nice.
Is there a website or some way that
there
people can
is.
contact you?
There definitely is. I'm actually, besides being a past master of the lodge and wearing many other hats, I'm the person who takes care of people coming in. So you can reach us on the Facebook page. We have a website and many numbers to the officers, and active lodge members will come up. Mine will probably come up like first, because
at the end of the program, after we do the editing, we'll make sure that your contact information is on the screen.
that would be fantastic.
You know, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's funny you mentioned the Waters family involvement in the lodge here in Millbury. You know, there's a lot of old wives' tales about the Asa Waters mansion, what some things mean there. You know, there's the story everyone always goes, you know, jumps to, that there's a tunnel between the Tory house and the mansion.
Well, there is. Yeah.
And we can't prove that today.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it never was
Right.
there.
It was supposed to go out to the railroad also.
What's interesting is there is only one piece of stained glass in the entire building, and it's on the side of the mansion that faces Elm Street, and it's blue. And one member of the task force, who has spent more time than me diving into the archives and studying the building, he thinks that was Ace's way of showing his appreciation for the Masons.
Blue Lodge.
So it's a theory. We don't know if it's true, but it's interesting to think about because there's only one piece of stained glass, and
Right.
that's the color he chose.
Yeah, you know, it's not what we're supposed to do, go around bragging and leaving our mark.
Sure.
But it is important that we leave an impression, especially to the younger generation.
Right.
And that little blue piece of glass, that makes people wonder, and it makes them inquisitive, and maybe makes them ask about the fraternity.
Right.
You know? So let me just share a really, really neat story about coming into the fraternity. When I was a kid working for my mom and dad, Billings Auto Supply used to be in the bottom of the Lodge building. You don't remember that, do you? No, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Do you remember it was there where Ray's True Value used to be, and then the video store?
I remember the video store.
Well,
There was a dry cleaner in there at one time, too.
but there was an auto parts store.
Yes.
That was before Steve's Auto Parts and so on. So I didn't have a license yet, so I'd ride down to the Billings Auto Supply on my 10-speed and get small stuff for my dad, you know, U-joints or whatever. And I see this thing that says Masonic building, you know, the lentil right over the door. And I asked one of the guys in the pot store what that meant. He said, I don't know what that means. I'm like, so I went away. Next thing you know, Ray's down there. And Ray's a past master of our lot. Ray Dubois from True Value. He's gone now. Nice man. But I says, Ray, what does Masonic building mean? He goes, how old are you, kid? I'm like, 17. He goes, oh, not old enough. He said, when you're 21, come and see me. It's 18 now. You can come in when you're 18. So life happens. Fast forward, I moved to Worcester. And I get married, and I'm going to live in Worcester forever, right? And so I ended up joining getting involved with a fraternity in Worcester through one of the Laternal boys. He sponsored me in. And part of coming into the lodge, your name gets circulated to make sure that you're a good person. We want a person who I can hand you my wallet. That's what we want. We want a person you can call in the middle of the night and he'll pick up the phone. That's what we want. So Ray calls me up down at my dad's shop. He goes, Dean, what are you doing going into a lodge in Worcester? I'm like, Ray, I said, I have a house in Worcester. I said, you ought to know you sold me all the paint. He goes, it's okay then. It's all right then, but you should be coming to Millbury. Fast forward a bunch of years, here I am in Millbury.
Funny enough.
Yeah, that's a great, great story. But it's such an important part of my life and everybody that surrounds me that I wish I would have come in earlier. So I came in when I was 30, so that means I'll be 80 when I get my big 50-year pin from the Grand Lodge.
Nice.
I think right now what we'll do is we'll jump to Scott to talk about the Lions Club and things are going on, and then we're going to come back to both of you and we'll talk about your program that will be coming in the
March 28th.
this distant future.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Well,
So,
thanks for having us
Scott.
here first. I've been in the Lions Club for almost a quarter of a century, and the Lions Club was founded in 1917 by Melvin Jones, a local businessman, wanted to do some good things for the community. And Helen Keller appeared in front of one of the conferences that they had and brought her plight of the blind to the Lions. So ever since then, they've been pretty much the Knights of the Blind. And it's our primary focus is to prevent or to stop preventable blindness. And that's on the international level. We are the largest service organization in the world now. We have 1.4 million members in 200 countries.
Incredible.
45,000 clubs. So the beauty of that is the power is in the numbers. And anything that happens, Hurricane Katrina, the Haitian earthquakes, anything that's happened, tsunamis, there's a lion there that can help. So that's the gist of the international level. Well, then there's a district level, and I think there's 1,600 clubs in the district, pretty much this state. 51 clubs. The Millbury Lions Club has been the #1 club on multiple occasions, and that's a huge thing for us because we're a little small town, but we have 70 thereabouts active members all the time, and that's a very big number for a club. There's many, many clubs that have 12 members. I live in Paxton these days. I'm not a Paxton Lion, I'm a Millbury Lion, but there's some wonderful people there that do huge things, but with 12 members, it's very hard to get some volunteerism going. So the same people are doing everything. We have the luxury of saying, you know, can you show up for this one thing? And we'll have 20 members, and 50 of them have the day off, and that's still a lot of people to run something. So on the local level, I believe on the district level, we've given $20 million to preventable blindness, $100,000 last year alone to Sight First or Mass Eye and Ear. So we're very involved in that stuff. But the important thing to me is on the local level, it's the Millbury Lions, and we do make our contributions to preventable blindness. We do visit Mass Eye and Ear, but what's going on in this town is hugely important to us. And to that end, we have meat raffles every Saturday, and local organizations get together with us and we split the funds. We have a diabetes camp, the Clara Barton Diabetes Camp. We have Christmas for Kids, which I've been involved in for probably 20 years with Dennis Leonard. I'm sure you met him. He was one of my best friends.
Great guy.
Yeah, they give presents to up to 150 kids a year, which is pretty amazing. And through Dennis's career of 35 years of doing it, how many kids is that he helped? You know, a wonderfully selfless person and an inspiration to me. So we do that. We do scholarships, a couple of scholarships up at the high school. We have a needs committee, and a needs committee is very important, where Dean says, you know, if you have a Mason in need or someone in need, you can make a phone call. Well, we have a similar thing, but you just can't come and get stuff. You call up who's ever the chairman. Right now it's Billy Kane, and there's a couple of people on the committee, and no matter what it is, you know, the child needs glasses. They need some clothes for school. Somebody had a fire, you know, a lot of things like that. The needs committee sits down and discusses it privately. It's not, you know, when you come to the Lions Club, the last thing you want is somebody knowing that you're in distress. You know, in a lot of instances, we're all pretty private people, and so they come to us, and the needs committee makes a decision, and then it goes to the board, and then it comes to the body. But more often than not, we help the person in need, you know. We have some people that work with us, like HU opticians. All I do is give them a call and say, I have a child coming down, and he gets them a pair of glasses, but he doesn't give them the low-income pair of glasses, or they choose what they want. Yep. He's an amazing partner to us. As a matter of fact, I made him Humanitarian of the Year a couple years ago.
Nice. Because
of it's important to him to be part of the community. So there's a whole bunch of things that we do. We collect eyeglasses throughout the year. You'll see boxes down at the bank in the center, and unfortunately, you can't use them in the United States because of regulations. But the president of the Lions Club right now is Jeannie Lilly, and she's also worked for an optometrist for a period of time. So every year in March, and I believe she's probably 2 weeks away from leaving again, she goes down to the Dominican Republic with another group, some Habitat for Humanity type of people, and they bring thousands of glasses down there that have been tested and cleaned, and they give them to the kids down there. And you know, it's an amazing thing. So there's, like his club, there's so many different branches and so many different things that are done. You know, the preventable blindness thing is an amazing thing. It's great. But locally, there's so many other things. You know, the Little League will call us and they need something. And we try and help as best we can. And one of the best things for me about the club is every nickel that comes in to the Millbury Lions Club goes back out. We don't have administrative percentage cost or anything like that. The members pay for the administration. So if we raise X amount of dollars, it either goes back to the town locally or it goes to preventable blindness. So I'm pretty proud of that, because if you go to a lot of organizations and you're handing them a check out of the goodness of your heart, a big percentage of that is overhead. Yep. We don't have that. We take care of our own business, and I think that's important. So that leads me to this day here, and one of the things I've tried to do in my tenure in the Lions Club is to join with other clubs, other groups, because they're all doing great stuff, and they all have a specialty. So years ago, we had a request for a young man that needed a ramp for his van, and I didn't know anything about handicap equipment at all at the time. We've done a few now. And I had to call the Knights of Columbus in Auburn, I think, because that's their specialty, handicap. And they not only gave me advice, but they joined in. So we did a 50-50 deal to solve this child's problem.
Nice.
And it's amazing. So he gave me a call and said he had something he was working on that was important to him, and it was going to be in town. So that's why I'm here to help him out. So we'll see what we can do with it.
Dean, we're back to you, and would you like to tell us more about that project that you are bringing forward?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The program is called My Chip, and a lot of people think right away, it's a child identification program, and a lot of people think right away when they hear chip that a child's going to get a chip implanted. Well, you might think it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it stands for Masonic Youth Child Identification Program. It's a program that was started by the Masons in 1988. And the program will segue into a lot of data that Scott has about missing and exploited children. But my take on it is, you know, people grow up, they start a family, and there's a responsibility to that family to protect them. You know, a lot of things in the world are different these days than they used to be. You know, there's a lot of children that are, and Scott will talk about those numbers, that disappear. This program is free to anybody who wants to come, and the Masons do not retain any information. And it's, like I said, it's totally free, and we've put a lot of money into it. This is the third generation, and we'll be rolling out brand new equipment. And how the program works is a child will come in and he'll fill out a little questionnaire with one of the sponsors that are working from the lodge or from the Lions Club and from the Rainbow Girls. They'll be assisting us too. We'll probably have hopefully 20 people on staff between all the different groups. We're going to have 6 stations where after the interview, the child goes and gets his identification done. But the interview process is on paper first with some immediate information like mom and dad. And you know, we know that a lot of moms and dads aren't together anymore. There's a lot of modified or blended families. So we're sensitive to that. So at the end of the whole program, you know, we tailor it to that type of situation. But the child will talk to the interviewer and will talk about certain sensitive things that will help identify this child should anything happen. We go on to a totally electronic fingerprint, and the last generation was just a thumb and a forefinger. Now law enforcement is telling us that 10 fingerprints is fantastic. So we're doing that. We're doing a little short video presentation, a still photo, DNA swab, dental impressions, which means we'll have a couple nurses on staff. And all of this goes into like a credit card, what do you call it, memory chip.
Yep.
That you can put it in the card. And we give two to the parents, so they're together. They put one in a safe, or we give two to two people that are co-parenting. And with the stats that Scott is going to talk about, that information right away is huge in helping to find a child. Now this event came to be. I've actually been involved in this program for about 20 years. But this is the first time we're going to do it in Millbury, and I'm really happy to bring it to Millbury. We used to do it out the Masonic home out in Charlton years ago. And then the last of what we did was out in Southbridge. We had a pretty big program going on there. So now there's some new funding in it, some new equipment. And on the 28th of March, through Judy O'Connor and Rick Townsend, who is part of our lodge, we're going to use the senior center. And from 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to invite people from all of Blackstone Valley and Worcester, because we're right next door, and whomever feels that there's a need for this, and there is a huge need, and there's a huge responsibility. And I could probably talk about it for a long, long time, but the important thing is that people take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's one Saturday, and you're going to protect your kid from God knows what. But Scott, why don't you give them some stats?
Yeah, so I did some searching the last couple of days here because the numbers are very obscure, right? It depends on reporting. It depends on, there's a lot of things recorded. And the numbers are the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which was started by John Walsh and his wife after they lost their son in 1984. Pre-1980s, really nothing to find children, to find missing people. Well, the stats are 800,000 people are reported missing, or children are reported missing every single year. Now that sounds like an amazingly huge number, but you have to take into consideration that half of those are custodial issues.
Sure.
You know, there's a bad divorce, and one parent takes the child who didn't win custody or something. So that's half of them. I'm sorry, that's a quarter of them. Another 50% is runaways. And the thing about runaways is they report every one of them. So if a child runs away 5 times,
Sure.
they're on that list 5 times. So if you get 800,000, half of them are runaways, you're down to 400,000, and you got 200,000 that are custodial, there's still a big number that are missing. The real important number to us, because runaways are runaways, and hopefully they don't end up being bad statistics, but a lot of them come home. But there's about 115 children every year that are taken by strangers. Now, 115 kids in a country doesn't seem like a lot, but Molly Bish comes to mind, and nationally, it may be not a big deal, right? It may not be that they know the name Molly Bish, but regionally, locally, and certainly family-wise, that's as devastating as it gets, right? So before 1980, there was really nothing. So John Walsh and his wife and some volunteers put together this nonprofit, and it's a catch-all. It's a clearinghouse of all that information you can go to. So when you get 800,000 people disappearing, that's 2,000 people a day. That's one every 40 seconds, right? So whether it's a runaway or whether it's a stranger kidnapping, this program can help, right? So some other numbers that are important to me. In the 80s, 150,000 people were missing every year. Now it's close to 900,000. So is it better reporting, or do we have more problems as we move along here? You know, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough that I played baseball behind my house, behind the church.
Sure.
You talk about the church in Bremenville?
Yep.
I lived next door. A relative of mine donated that land to the First Congregational Church.
Funny.
You talk about Asia Waters Mansion. I went to CCD there.
Funny.
Right,
Yeah.
So it's a small world.
Taught CD there.
Yeah,
Did you?
and you know, I drove the bicentennial van, so my family's house was on that route. So
Cool.
it's very, very hard to not be able to let your child go roam on their own. You can't today.
It's a different world.
We went out and we played
Yeah.
baseball behind the church. His son and I fished at Briley's Pond every day, or ice
Sure.
skated. My mother never knew where we were. We came home.
You'd go all over town on your own.
And we had
Yeah,
the time of our
different time.
lives, and it's a shame that you can't do that, but you can't do that. So when the numbers have gone up like this, something has to be done about it, right? So things we started to look at. What's the problem, right? And the problem is, especially in a city, in a small town like this doesn't hold as true, but in a city like Boston, they have murders, they have rapes, they have so many things going on that a missing person isn't the highest on the priority.
Sure.
And that is not a dig at the police force or anything like that. You have to prioritize things, right? And sometimes it seems they have bigger problems, especially if you're the parent, right? So they start to develop things, right? In the 1980s, we have milk cartons, right? We know about the milk cartons. We all remember seeing the pictures on them. And back in its time, that was pretty advanced, and it did recover some children, right?
Yep.
Now you've got your iPhones going off, right? The child in Springfield, right?
Amber
It's,
Alerts.
it's a terrible feeling when that phone goes off.
Isn't it awful?
Yeah.
Because you're starting to, but you are on alert, aren't
Yep.
you? You're
Oh,
looking
yeah.
for that vehicle.
And that's the child that they picked up
They recovered
in Charlton, I believe.
Yeah, 3 hours later or something like, or
Yeah,
later in the
on-
day.
Why?
Right?
On a turnpike.
Okay, so it starts to evolve. You've got milk cartons, and then you've got computer forensics. They start to do aging of photos. They start to do fingerprinting. They start to profile people, right? Forensic profiling is an amazing thing that's pretty dead on. They can pretty much get that, right? So now we get to Dean's program, and I say out loud, why does that program matter, right? And the biggest thing, and he started to give you some details of it, but in the first 3 hours of any abduction, that's the most important time, because they say 76.2% in the first 3 hours, if they're going to be murdered, and I hate to use that term,
Yep.
but they're killed within the first 3 hours. And the major hurdle that you face as a law enforcement agency is, how do you get information about that child as quickly as you can? And that's why the Amber Alerts are just amazing, right? Because everybody's looking. But the statistics show that the parent of a lost child, the first 2 hours of that thing, is absolutely useless. They can't give you anything.
Right.
And the police are there saying, what did she wear? What did she? And they don't even know, right? So the packet he's talking about, and he's going to talk about a little more, they'll have it. So if something catastrophic happens like that, and heaven forbid it's a stranger kidnapping, but even if it is a runaway, they do have those things. So they can instantly know the dental records of the child. They can instantly know the DNA. They can instantly have a video profile or something, and something in hand while the parents try and deal with that situation. So that's where that comes in. So
Yeah.
if you want to
Yeah,
expound
like
on
I
that a
said,
little?
I could talk about this program forever. Obviously, you're not old enough, but the rest of us are old enough where these type of programs didn't exist.
Right.
And we have so many modern technology and communication, global and national and all that, that has helped us locate and assist in recovering children that are missing. Facebook, for one, for all the evils that Facebook has, and the Amber Alert and all that. There's an Amber Alert triggered, it goes to Facebook, it goes to your telephone. And with the assistance of this, the timeline that Scott is talking about, 3 hours, you contact a parent and say, oh, your kid, or the parent calls and says, my kid didn't come home from school. So an hour is gone before they determine what they're going to do, what could happen in that hour. But then they need to find out, the law enforcement says, well, I need a picture, I need this, I need that. Then they're scrambling to find that. This is all right there. It's all right there. And these computers that we use, they're actually developed, the new generation was developed by like a 30-something-year-old kid who was in our fraternity. Very, very bright.
Very cool.
Yeah, and nothing is retained. It's automatically wiped as soon as we go to the second kid. So there'll be, an important thing about that is, stolen identities. You see it all the time.
That must be, with data the way it is today,
Exactly.
that's a concern for a lot of people.
Yeah, you go to a department store and you take out a credit card and somebody tries to take your data. We don't want to assist anybody in, creating more turmoil that we're trying to prevent.
Yep.
But, we're a Blackstone Valley organization, and like Scott was saying, he's concerned about the Millbury Lions. I'm concerned about the whole fraternity. And this is not the only area that this is done in. This My Chip is done all over the place, all the way up into Canada. There's a fantastic YouTube video, if anybody wants to get on it. It's about the My Chip program in Ontario, Canada. We're developing one of those videos right now, so we'll have one. But it's full of information, and it's fantastic. And that crosses over from Canada to what we do. It's all about trying to protect our families.
Yep.
Sure, and
that's
what
true.
we'd like to do is kind of alleviate the fears, and that's what this
Yeah.
program does, right? Everyone knows someone who's up in age and they don't want to create a will
Right.
because they almost feel like that's a bad omen.
Right.
But there's a reality there, right? And you should have those things in order. Well, you pray that nothing is ever going to happen to your child. But if you aren't prepared if it does, you really got a problem. And you know what Dean was saying is huge to me. The fact that you can get your own kit and take it home. Because I'm not sure I want my child's DNA in a database.
Yep.
Right? Because you know there's things that happen with DNA with insurance companies and such, right? That you don't maybe trust it, right? But it's not. It's yours. They're going to take it and they're going to give it to you. And if it ever comes up and you need it, it's yours. You don't have to go, you know, where did it end up? Because some things don't end up where they're supposed to. So I think that's a huge part of this program.
Yep.
And we also have the support. I talked to Lieutenant Lewis this morning because he's done some wonderful things with us, some basketball tournaments and things. And he's in full support of this. And on that day, he's going to try and have an officer or two stop by and lend a hand and show some support.
Nice.
They're obviously behind this kind of a program.
Yeah.
Now, Dean, what is the cost to an individual for this program?
There's no cost.
No cost at all?
The fraternity, the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts, takes responsibility for everything. And it's nothing that you need to get done every year, but as your child, let's just say you get your child done when he's 2 years old, right? You can have it done in another 5 years. There's nothing to say that you can only do it once because people change, you know
Sure.
what I mean? And,
You know, I've seen over the years, whether it be on TV programs or the internet videos of runaways. And many times a runaway will end up being picked up by an individual somewhere and turned into the sex trade, prostitution, or even into drugs.
Right.
And it's a sad situation for our country,
Sure.
for America, to be having things like this happen, especially to the children that are missing and then found dead.
Sure.
This just turns my stomach because it's appalling
Sure.
that these things are allowed to happen in a country like this.
and you can't think that it's never going to happen to you or somebody you know. Like Scott was saying, the preparation for death, you know, having a will and so on like that. This is the plan B. You know, plan A is nothing's ever going to happen to your kid.
Right.
But plan B is be prepared for it. So the fraternity and the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts is offering this plan B to help protect our families.
Well, I read a statistic recently that this plan has already helped in the recovery of thousands of kids.
Oh, sure it has.
So it's been around for a while. This is not
Yes.
a new one that they've done, but thousands of kids have been recovered.
And you
with
think
it.
about all the different
incredible.
Yeah.
pieces of information that are in this kit. Because, you know, sometimes when you find somebody a bunch of years later, you need more than one piece of data.
Yep.
This kit gives you that whole piece
Yep.
of data.
One thing that I had a part in when I was on the planning board, we did over the sign bylaws. I was part of the sign bylaw task force. And one of the things we did with the building inspector, anyone applying for a permit for an electronic message center would have to consent to making that electronic message center available in an Amber Alert
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
in order to get a permit.
Makes
Right.
sense.
That's-
Well, listen, technology
That's fantastic.
can be intrusive, right? But in other areas, one of the easiest things in the world, but one of the most amazing thing to me, is that my GPS beeps when I enter a school zone.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's a silly little chip, a receiver and a transmitter or something, and you hear your GPS go beep, and you know you should slow down.
Yep.
It's pretty sweet. you know?
Technology can solve a lot of problems.
Can.
It's just you always hope it's in the right hands.
Right.
Sure, but you have to be willing to use that tool.
Absolutely.
So I had one more little story that I would like to tell.
Well, I wanted to tell a little story first, or I wanted to.
Okay, you're bigger than he is.
He is bigger than me.
Not really a story, but I just wanted to thank Scott, you know, being my cousin, and just reaching over through a conversation we had, to involve the Lions and the Freemasons. I think it's going to be a great event, and I can see a bunch of things coming down the road in the future.
I know Scott through my son because they were very tight together and growing up.
I know.
And I have a great deal of respect for you
Thank you.
and what you have done. You got a heart of gold, you know,
Thank you.
and you have a heart of gold as well. And I'm impressed that these two organizations are teaming up together
Sure.
to make this project a success.
I think Dean told you a story not too long ago about how we met at a scholarship night at the high school. We've done a lot of things together. We're like brothers.
Sure.
And when we were young, we were into some shenanigans, and we're not going to go into those today. But he was very active with the Masons, and I was very active with the Lions, but we weren't really hanging out together. We were doing different things. And one night, I went to give the Dennis Leonard Scholarship at the high school that I started with his family, and the Lions Scholarship. And in walks Dean right beside me, and he's giving out a Mason Scholarship. And one of the Brady girls was there, and she's a cousin of mine, and she's giving out a scholarship. And later on, we're talking and said, you know, how nice is it that, you know, whatever we were doing, we were kids, we were friends then and we're friends now, but how nice is it for 3 members of a family to be at the high school giving back a little bit or just being involved in something amazing? So we've had a lot of conversations since then, working on vehicles or whatever we're doing. And we said whenever we get the chance to get our groups together and do something good, we're going to do it. So
It's great to have folks like you all involved in town. It's great that there's organizations like the Lions and the Masons in town contributing to the community. The impact you have not only helps folks today, but the impact can last a generation. So we're really lucky to have you guys.
thank you.
I appreciate that. And I don't really want to detract or minimize what we're talking about, because the My Chip event and program is what we're talking about. But that money has to really come from somewhere. The scholarships we were talking about that we give away. We give away, in Millbury, we give away, I think, 5 or 6 scholarships a year, and then there's Sutton and Valley Tech and now Douglas. But the money comes from a fish fry that we're starting next Wednesday, on Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday through the Lenten season, down at the Douglas Lodge, we'll be having a fish fry, and we raise
I've been there.
a ton of money, and it's a fantastic meal. And we give every bit of this money away, you know, to the kids for school. And then there's the golf tournament, which you said that you have played in.
Yep.
And we've been doing that for 30 some years probably, and every bit of that money goes away. So, but there's plenty of places to put it. Like I said, we support 4 towns. So we, every bit of money that we raise there, but you know, it's fantastic too. You guys can come down to the fish fry on Wednesday or every Friday and run into somebody you know. And you'll probably run into somebody you know that you didn't know was a Mason.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic, fantastic bonding and fraternalism, like we call in our.
Well, here's the bad thing to me is we talk about negative so much, right? All the bad things that are going on in the world, but
Sure.
if few people know all the things the Masons do, or all the things the Lions do, or the Kiwanis, or whatever group it is, the Knights. There's some huge things going on in this country that are very good, and it's people doing just a little bit group, and that's going on every day, and we don't talk about it enough, and we appreciate you letting us come in and talk about this one.
We do.
I think I'm going to have to go down to Douglas and get some seafood on Fridays.
That's it.
There are 2 charitable organizations team up with this My Chip program. I'm impressed. And I hope people in our viewing audience are also impressed. And I hope they step up and come out and get involved in your program. And you want to tell us when it is again, Dean?
First of all, I'll ask the grandparents, because I know grandparents play an integral part of their grandchildren's lives. If mom and dad find themselves too busy, grandparents can come down. I've seen it a lot. It's fantastic. Single moms, single dads. But this event is going to take place at the Millbury Senior Center on March 28th. It's going to start at 7 a.m. in the morning, and we're going to close shop at 3 o'clock. I have another event after that. But and there's no cost to anybody who comes in. We're going to have 6 stations going with, you know, between 18 and 20 team members. So I think it'll be nice and fluid. from where I'm looking at right now. And you know, when you talk about it, tell your friends. You know, tell your friends that have children, and tell your family members. And you know, go over to the border. Like I said, we talk about Blackstone Valley being important to us, but Worcester's right there. We're not going to cheat any family that has children in Worcester from coming down, because there's no programs like this up there.
Right.
And this will be an annual program?
You know, I think it might.
Yeah.
I think it might. I'm hoping it will, but it's going to depend on participation. You know, we want to help, but you got to help also.
Sure.
So if people come, I'd be happy to do it every single year.
One thing with this program, once it's taped and all set up and to go, we can continually run this. Just because the program is going to be in March,
Right.
we can still run it later on, and if you have another program that's coming up, we can also add the date to that.
Yeah.
Good.
So we'll keep people informed. you
If
know.
anyone needs any information about Lionism, they want to join, they want to donate, they want to help, they need some help, it's millburylions.org.
Okay, we'll make sure at the end,
Perfect.
the credits that scroll, your contact information for both organizations will be on there.
Perfect.
Perfect.
You know?
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming. And I hope and pray that this program is highly successful.
I hope we never need to use it.
And if it saves one child,
Yeah.
one life,
It's worth it.
it's worth it.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be great if we helped identify 100 or 200 people on that Saturday, children, but nobody ever had to pull that card out of their wallet?
Be great.
That would be fantastic.
And at this point in the program, Dora usually says to me, and what time is it? It's time for words of wisdom. I want to thank you folks for coming.
Thank you very much.
And the words of wisdom for this program: if you haven't any charity in your heart, you have the worst kind of heart trouble. See you again next time.
I like that.
Thank you.